Well, the time has come to talk about Mourinho. And I don't know if this hype now is artificial or if it comes from something real. Now, let's get into that topic because it's fascinating. It's fascinating how social media also acts as an amplifier for all of this, right? There have always been a lot of activity on social media for Mourinho, Don Jose, a bit of nostalgia, the fact that over time things he said have come true and so on. It's true for me, and now I'll share that thought. Was there something there was in the match against Benfica? Not that it broke, but well, I already criticized it. I don't keep quiet here just because it's Mourinho. We're not going to overlook certain things he did that for me were wrong. But well, in any case, on the other hand, I also tell you that at the time he represented Madrid the way it had to be done, even though during that period I didn't always agree with him. And later I had no problem admitting that he did well, right? Because of everything we learned later, which we already suspected during that time, of course. And he also planted the seed that was needed to recover it again, that winning spirit that Madrid had historically and lost for a few years. And then this gentleman came to bring order, right? But well, are we going to talk about that now? Before that, I wanted to tell you about this. The Martin, who some say Madrid has been following for a while, about last night's final, okay? Before last night's final, this guy put in an amazing performance in the final. Hey, a center back, 19 years old. Look at what Alvaro Escorial says here, who's a good Twitter commentator and also a journalist. He says, I know that after Hausen, Florentino would rather throw himself into Helm's abyss than pay 50 million again for a Spanish center back who's still a kid. He says, but this guy is a beast. Of course, Hausen was also 19 when we signed him. And watch out, Hausen, because this year he's been a bit up and down. I still think he's a great center back prospect. But many times, in fact, I think Zubimendi wasn't signed because we had someone named Illaramendi whose last name ended the same way. And I think Florentino said, don't bring me another one of these guys who's a flop, right? I mean, those things might seem silly, but I think they have an influence, I think they matter, especially now, and especially for someone. He's not a specialist. He's not no es un especialista, nor does he do scouting work like Florentino and like you and me and many of us who are here watching you now or me making this video, because there are professionals for that. Sometimes we see a player, think he looks good from highlights or following him, but there are professionals who do this for a living. Some aren't very good, while others are true experts. Therefore, that opinion, maybe that thing Florentino could have when responding a bit to this tweet, is something very human, something any of us could have, right? No, don't try to convince me. This went badly before, but what's happening with this guy is serious. And I was interested to check on transfer market to see how long his contract lasts, because the 20 million, obviously, if big clubs start knocking on his door, that's something that's going to go up wildly. But there's a limit, especially given his age. You can't ask for something that's not realistic for a football player. His contract ends on June 30th, 2031. Of course, he's very young, and it's difficult when there's still a lot of time left. We would have to call Real Sociedad. As far as I know, we get along well with them, as far as I know, and offer him. Well, of course, in the end, it would mean paying much more than what people say he costs here. And it's likely that the price would be around 50 or 60. Well, you already paid for Hausen, right? So I don't know. Let me know in the comments. But for me, this guy, I had already heard about him before the final because of that, right? They said that Madrid was tracking him and that he was an option. And well, yesterday I liked him. I liked him a lot. All right, let's talk about Mo. Let's talk about Mo because wait, before Mo. They're saying that they said in Marca yesterday or the day before that Arbeloa is not going to continue. On Spanish television, they said he would continue. Therefore, I only believe so much of all this because I also have to add something else. Club is also in the shortlist. Look, I actually find the club thing even harder than the Mourinho thing. Mourinho is a coach who we could, and I don't mean this in a negative way, we could say that in a way, even though he's coaching a giant of European football, right? A bit less prominent now. Benfica is a bit, and don't get me wrong here, a bit outdated, a bit. Ancelotti was too, when he was at Everton, just to be clear. Ancelotti was really outdated and kind of on the decline when he was at Everton. And look at him now. Just look. That's why there could be some parallels with 2021. And that a phone call, that casual one, that one from Ancelotti. I don't know if Ancelotti started it, right? To Madrid, right? Hey, do you have any footballers you don't need that you could send over to my Everton? Wouldn't you like to coach Madrid? Well, don't tell me. That's what Ancelotti says. That now it would be something similar. I'll get to that now. But first, about the club thing. Well, about Arbeloa, like I said, some say he's leaving, others say he's not. The whole club situation. I've seen multiple people there who they say they have information. When a guy comes up to you, someone who's just getting into the media, or, well, nowadays with social media and platforms like YouTube and so on, well, anyway, today anyone can get a microphone, for better or worse. No, I have information. Well, hey, look, let whoever believes you believe you. I can tell you that I don't have any information about the club. I don't have any information about it. When I had information, I told you. And it was very good. A few months before they signed Mbappe, the regulars and the old subscribers of the channel will remember in November 2023, I told you there was a deadline for Mbappe's signing. And, well, in the end, that came true. I'd like to say I've been right about many other things. No, because that's not what I do. You know, this isn't a channel for that, okay? But at that time, I did have some very good information from someone very reliable, and I was able to share it. And in the end, it happened. I don't know. Everyone will tell me their own thing here because there are a lot of people who deceive, who make things up. Anyway, this is older than journalism itself. They make up these things and say, yes, that they have information and so on. I don't know where they got it from, whether they've already started talks with club or not. It's possible. In fact, it may not have started now. It may go back a long way. Since they thought about firing Xavi Alonso already, like, whoa, man. Would you be interested? Would you leave your comfortable life now to come to Madrid? How are things? I don't know what he would say if that conversation happened, but he already said it when they fired Xavi. Did he criticize the... I'm not sure if that's an issue for Florentino or if it just motivates him more, like, fine, I'll sign you then. Because Madrid has wanted him for a long time, that's clear. But anyway, club would come in very forcefully. I'm absolutely sure of that too. He would ask for things that Florentino at first doesn't grant to anyone except, and here we go with Mourinho to Mourinho. He did it back then, but it also cost Mourinho. Let's see. Mourinho arrives and Valdano is there and Mourinho sees Valdano. I was at the press conference when Valdano and Mourinho came in for Mourinho's presentation in May 2010. Back then, I was covering motorcycles on Spanish television, but many times I missed a lot. Some of my colleagues would cover certain news and so on, and I was one of the backups on the Madrid beat, and that's where they sent me, right? From the very first minute they walked into that press room, I saw that Mourinho and Valdano, there was no connection between them, right? And Mourinho had a hard time getting rid of Valdano, but he did it himself because he said, this guy's an obstacle for me. He's a roadblock. An obstacle in the way of what I want to achieve at Real Madrid, which is to dominate the sporting side and even the communication, and to wield a level of power that no other coach has had at Real Madrid, and he achieved it. Zidane is something else now, and Ancelotti has been something different. But Mourinho got from Florentino what no one else has managed to get. And that's why at this point, it's likely that Florentino Perez will throw caution to the wind and say, why not? And why not? To finish a job he was never able to complete. I always thought the 10th would come with Mourinho, right? What does this mean from a sporting point of view? Well, I think this could be a handicap, but given how special Real Madrid is, it might not be a problem and could even be a virtue. Let me explain. Mourinho in sports and tactics has nothing new to teach us. He's already shown us everything. even though he played a very good match against Real Madrid in the last group stage game of the Champions League when the goalkeeper didn't score the goal. Then in the knockout stage, Arbeloa completely shut him down. Well, Arbeloa and others too. Vinicius also played as he should. A goal there, a goal here, bam, right? Coaches can't do much about that, which is why I say Mourinho won't teach us much. But maybe Madrid doesn't even need that. I mean, you've brought in a guy, someone like Alonso, a coach who managed to make Bayer Leverkusen champions for the first time in their history against a team like Bayern Munich. He wins the league, wins the cup, makes it to the final of the EuroLeague. Wait, what's it called? The Europa League. Atalanta beat them thanks to Lookman, who destroyed them on 3 counterattacks. Otherwise, they would have won that competition too. You think, wow, this modern coach will bring fresh ideas. But you've seen what happens. A coach with new methods gets eaten alive by the locker room. But that's the point. Would the locker room eat Mourinho alive? No, quite the opposite. The key question is, if Mourinho clashes with someone in the locker room, whose side will Florentino take? Well, look, back in the day, Mourinho was there when he said that thing about Cristiano. They say he's sad and whatever, or he confronted him. I mean, he was much tougher than, for example, Xabi Alonso has been with Vinicius in this case. At first, he seemed tough, but when he saw that Florentino was taking power away from the coach and giving it to the squad, to the egos of the squad, to a specific player, if it had been another superstar, I'm not talking about Fran Garcia, or not, I'm telling you, of course, another one, Asensio and so on, no, against one of these big names. So he said, I have nothing left to do here. But what about with Mourinho? That's why there's something here that gets me excited. There's something there that gets me excited. And then from a media standpoint, it would be incredible. But then there's something I don't like, and it's a major drawback. What he did with Prestiani and Vinicius, blaming them, Vinicius for how he celebrated and all that. Well, we already talked about it here. I thought that was wrong. I thought it was wrong saying that he could have stayed neutral in the situation, but instead he sided with his player. He's perfectly within his rights, but you can back your player. But in a situation like this, damn, keep a lower profile, especially afterwards. Don't say to Vinicius what you said to him. For me, that's the only issue. Otherwise, honestly, it makes me a bit... The idea that Mourinho could be at Real Madrid now excites me. And if it's about playing matches by sitting back and parking the bus and all that, look, the record-breaking league with the most points and goals was his. There were moments with that Real Madrid when the way we attacked was a real spectacle and all that. It's true that his style of play isn't the one I like the most aesthetically in terms of my general conception of soccer. It excites me, but Madrid worked very well with him for a few years. But you also depend on players who are absolute killers like we had back then. And I wouldn't expect much tactically from Mourinho when it comes to attacking or keeping possession and giving me a bit of what I like the most. You guys might like something else. But it's true that his defenses and his tough teams, how he prepares his teams to be rock solid. I like that because we have to start rebuilding, of course, from the back, not conceding goals, being a really tough team to beat. Let the forwards score and respect the coach. Maybe they'll respect this coach. All right, hope everything goes well for you. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to the channel, please comment, share, and I'll see you in the next one. And let me know in the comments what you think about this. Bye. Bye.